Hello and welcome to season 3 of the Devotional Anarchy podcast. I am so excited for season 3. Each season, this podcast, this space gets deeper. It gets more intimate. It gets more real. So I'm really appreciating that because I took a break in December and it's good to take a break. And I missed it. I missed it because this is a space where I allow myself to get more intimate than in any other place, in any other public place, like, social media with its little mini soundbite and scrolling kind of culture. I don't really allow myself to go deep. I don't feel like going that deep. There's like little pieces, but this is a place where I can really drop in depth and with as much time as I want, right? So there's something about that is like really nice for my nervous system. So I'm really appreciating this space and I'm appreciating you as a listener listening. This is really, really important to me to get just this energy, this information, this permission out there. So like I said, I took a break, and I usually take a break at the end of the year to celebrate the ways that I showed up for myself and for other people in the year, like showed up for my business, all this stuff. But I didn't feel like celebrating very much. In fact, the end of the year ended up being a continuation of 2022, which was like massive identity shifts and shadow work. And I got COVID again. So I felt even slower and needing to preserve as much energy as possible. And, I want to be like in full disclosure, like when I work with intimacy mentoring with couples, I often invite people to express how are you coming into this conversation? Like, what are you bringing with you into this conversation? And I want to walk that talk and say that I'm holding a little bit of anxiety because I've recorded this podcast, no joke, 4 times, like the whole thing through 4 times. The first 3 times didn't record well. There was something about the sound that was off, like it just was garbled. You couldn't understand anything. And the 4th time, yesterday, there's a whole section that I skipped by mistake. And I'm just feeling like each time I'm feeling frustrated about that. And at the same time, I know that each time that I record it, this usually never happens, but this time it feels really important because each time it gets deeper and realer. So you're getting the best version of this right now. And this episode is about embracing evolution in your relationships, whether, again, those relationships are business related or romantically related. It doesn't matter because it's really about the intimacy work and how that flows into every single relationship in your life, including the one with yourself. And as part of embracing evolution, you've probably noticed that I rebranded a little bit, and we're talking about how internal change affects your relationships. And I'm going to be offering emotional and practical ways to navigate the pivots that, are constantly happening. So I'll start by sharing that, like I said, 2022 was a lot of identity shifts and shadow work. And on top of that, in October, the end of October, I felt myself slowing down. I felt myself slowing down sort of mid-October already. And specifically when Mars went into retrograde. I am an Aries rising. So Mars is in my chart pretty significantly. And I've just felt like I'm in this deep grind crone phase. Like I'm shifting out of perhaps the mother archetype into a crone phase. And that's partly because of my age. And I'm just feeling like very much I'm on the inside of a cocoon, sort of in this meltdown phase. And it doesn't feel extreme. And obviously I'm able to show up and launch things and do whatever I need to do. But there is a sense of very like a deep rumbling quiet in me. And the way that I visualize it in my head, I feel like I'm crawling underneath the earth. I feel like I'm moving, but it feels like a slow subterranean crawl. So that's what it's feeling like. And so as all of this was like began to get set in motion, I was rebranding my website. I was redoing my website. I opened up a Facebook group and, for business coaching, and I added business coaching to the list of services, which I launched during the fall and just into the winter. And so as I was redoing my website, I was remarking that it had only been a year since I had redone my website. Like just in December of last year, I had come out with new services. And here I was like it hadn't even a year, not even a year had passed, and I was doing it again. And so I was just like, wow, like I haven't turned things over that quickly in my life usually. Like, yes, I'm always constantly evolving. It's always moving. I'm pivoting and shifting, right? Like this is sort of what we need to get good at as business owners, and in our relationships, we are always shifting and moving, but I just never had it happen so fast. And so then at the beginning of December, on top of all of that, I was invited to become a partner in a colleague's financial planning firm with the intention to offer trauma-informed, social justice-oriented planning services for people. And there's a whole backstory on that I want to share with you, but I'll share with you on a future episode. The point is here that I said yes to the opportunity. It was something that I was really desiring very strongly. And I also noticed that I had a lot of mental doubts and fears about sharing it publicly, like coming out with it. And I had mostly concerns about what other people would think about my business and how I conduct myself in it. Specifically, I had fears that people would think I'm superficial because I'm just focusing on money, even though my heart is so much wanting people, like everyday people, average income people, to build incredible wealth within their lifetime and to build legacy for their children, for their offspring. That is my heart, right? So I know this, and yet I could feel or notice that fear story running. I also was afraid that people would think that I couldn't hack it in my regular job, in my coaching job. So I sold out and just like, got this other job, and I know that's not true. Even saying it now makes me laugh because I'm still selling and continuing to offer the services I already provide. And there was another fear thought that I was like, this is not a word I usually use, but it's a fun word to say. It's dilettante, like that I'm just sort of job hopping, that I can't like really anchor down, that I'm ungrounded, right? Like this judgment that I'm ungrounded or that I've sold out, right? But again, coming back into the truth that I'm really following my passion. Like I think that the way we relate to money is really, really profound. It is not superficial at all. And it has the power to really change how we buy things, how we consume, how we care for things. It just has much bigger ramifications than, which I'm going to be getting into that other episode with. But yeah, it has much, much deeper ramifications for me. So, but I had all these like fears that like people wouldn't get it, right? Ultimately, that they wouldn't see the whole thread. And it also got me thinking about like how we lead in our relationships, right? Like if you are an embodied leader, we lead in our relationships and in our businesses basically from the assumption that we're always evolving, right? If you're a transformation agent, you're always evolving and nothing stays the same. And that's pretty fucking vulnerable when you think about it. As much as we lead, as much as we're in the role of leading, we're also being led, right? Like we are being pulled into experiences that transform us. And we've probably, because we often teach from the places we got hurt, your transformation has been part of the medicine you now offer. And right? Because you do the work that you do, that change doesn't stop. We are constantly moving. The planets are constantly moving. Movement is the only constant. And if you're open, if you're willing to co-create with life, which is, right, willingness is the yes in your body. And resistance is our no. Resistance is just fear. It's the place where we're like, no, hold up. I don't know about that, right? So if you're open, if you're willing to co-create with life, if you're willing to be transformed, you're also going to move internally. That's just a given. And I want to add to that, the bigger your yes, the more yes you have in your body, the faster the transformation happens, right? And I think that, I work constantly on creating more yes in my body and less resistance. And it's like, I'm seeing that this year more than ever, like things are starting to, like manifestation is happening very, very quickly, like very short time periods. I'm sure you've been noticing that too. And sometimes we seek out change in very specific ways, right? We move towards transformation with intentionality. Maybe we hire a coach, or maybe we recognize patterns that we know we need to shift, and we do the things that like get us there. But a lot of times, like, change finds you. Life will create the conditions for major internal upheaval. And sometimes we don't want it, right? Because I think at a very deep human level, we fear change. Our nervous systems want things to stay the same. And it just feels safer that way. And at the very least, like the illusion of sameness is comforting at some level. And that's why we get rocked when cataclysmic events come into our lives, because there's a part of us that's wanting to push away the idea or the reality that everything changes. Why is that? Well, because moving internally involves a death process, right? Changing your patterns involves a death process, an ego death process. And our ego is really rarely up for that. It doesn't like that. So it can feel really scary. It can feel painful. There's a lot of unknown. We don't know what life is going to look like on the other side of that transformation. We don't know who we're going to be on the other side of that transformation. I'm speaking very much from like where I am right now in this cocoon phase, right? So it's like, it can be, like, even though there's rebirth and reclamation after the death, right? We know that to be true. You've already experienced that once, twice, 3 times, but it is still quite terrorizing to be in that chrysalis meltdown of the caterpillar to butterfly process. And, honestly, when parts of you die, there are phases that I don't want to say require, but that are probably best cared for with some good grief and mourning, right? Like some nice goodbye ritual. You want to make space for the parts of you that are shedding, so that you can really welcome the parts that are that are being reclaimed, right? There's something very powerful about creating ritual and ceremony, and it doesn't have to be complicated, but can be as simple as lighting a candle and saying a prayer, or moving your body to a piece of music that that resonates. Or it can be big, like having a huge bonfire, inviting 30 of your best friends to do something together. But I think it's really important to honor, to witness, to recognize that this change is happening as part of embracing evolution. And so now I want to shift into a little bit of the relational piece, and then I'm going to talk about the business piece. So relationship wise, ideally we like to believe that, and we like to, like, I don't know, when I think about my ideal relationship, I would want a relationship where, the person that I'm with or the people that I'm with are very much embracing their evolution, really wanting to grow together, evolve together, make space for all the changes that are happening. And the way that I like to approach people in my life, whether I'm romantically involved with them or not, is that I like to experience them as brand new, from the assumption that because everyone is always changing, or especially the people that I'm around are, evolutionary agents as you are, that who they were yesterday is not who they are today. So that when I encounter them today, even though I encountered them yesterday, I'm encountering them with curiosity and newness, or beginner's eyes, versus a narrative that I have about them, right? Just the same way you want to be witnessed when you've experienced a lot of rapid change. You want to be seen in that change, and not have people interact with you with an old version of yourself, right? So it's like, I want to offer the people that I'm in connection with that same grace that I want for myself, that I want to be seen with, right? So inviting you here to like stay curious and adjust to the changes, like in your partnerships, right? And sometimes, even though you may have the intention of growing together, sometimes the ways we change, especially if those changes are, maybe there are things that happen, that where life happens versus the change that we're intentionally seeking out. Sometimes changes grow us in different directions, as you know, and those changes become kind of non-negotiable for the relationship, and the relationship becomes no longer viable. Sometimes there are death processes that occur in relationship that don't necessarily mean that the relationship has ended. For example, I've known people who have been married for a very, very, very long time, let's say 30, 40 years, but who have experienced different versions of their marriage within their marriage. So like sub-marriages or sub-relationships within their relationship. And it's because, at some point they realized, this person that I married is no longer the person that I married, or this person that I'm with right now is no longer the person that I married. And it's like, it's really invited them into like, not a renewal of vows or anything like that, although you can do that, but just this recognition that that version of our relationship is dying or has died. And here we are in a renaissance or in a new phase. And of course, when a relationship is no longer viable, it may mean that you end the relationship and you don't see that person again. But often there is an opportunity to shift the form and shape of the relationship. Maybe you go from, being romantically connected to becoming business partners, or it can be as simple as shifting from, a marriage into a co-parenting relationship or a friendship. Maybe it is a friendship that transitions into some co-parenting, like maybe you decide to have a baby together, who knows? But it's, sometimes we just grow in those different directions, and the relationship doesn't end, but the version of the relationship ends and a new one is allowed to form. Yeah. And what I want to say to that is that, I notice a part of me in my friendships, because I really, really value friendships a lot. And there's a part of me that likes to believe that when somebody's in my life, that they're just going to be in my life for a really long time, because, right, like maybe the relationship has a particular depth to it. Maybe, I just have this feeling like, oh, it's going to be just as strong and deep as always. And if there's anything that this year has taught me, is that it's so much more complicated than that. It's more complex. And that I was just surprised. I've been surprised, not always in a delighted way, of the directions that some of my relationships have taken. Like people that I thought would be in my life for a long time have just like gone away. And then people who I've had in my life for a long time, who I don't have such a deep relationship with, have been in my life for a long time and have been there in really important moments. Like there isn't a lot of like maybe emotional connection, but they have been with me in moments where I've like had like that emergency friend where it's like, oh my God, you're getting me out of the shittiest situation right now. Thank you for being here, kind of friendship. So I'm always surprised, sometimes in a delighted way, sometimes not, by the direction some relationships take. So I want to shift into the business piece. So sometimes, so I'm still recovering from COVID. Sometimes when you experience a lot of internal evolution, you may feel the need to rebrand. You may feel the need to pivot. You may feel the need to, I don't know, burn down part of your business or remove services or add new ones, right? And this can bring up a lot of feels, like I was sharing sort of from my personal experience before, is that we fear losing people. We fear confusing people. We fear people aren't going to get it, right? They're not going to stay attached to us. They're going to be like, what is this bitch doing? Bye, And I want to invite you into trusting, just as you would in a relationship. If a relationship dissolves, I want you to trust that as you're shifting, you may be doing the letting go on one end, but you will be also trusting that you are attracting or inviting in people that are more aligned to this new version of you, right? As you open up new space, it's kind of like, oh, more to see, new people coming in, right? To trust that is part of the process, right? Like letting go, coming in, door closes, door opens kind of thing. Yeah, we want to be understood. We want to be seen, obviously, like from a very deep human level. And as business owners, right, we have services to sell, and it's important that people get what we're selling. And we might feel tempted to want to explain why the change is happening, which is fine if you want to do that. If it feels relevant to something you're selling, or if it's something you're really excited about sharing, then why not share it, right? There is no hard and fast rule. But the truth is that most of the time, people don't care that much. People just care, is it relevant to me? How does this affect me? How does this impact me? So as long as like just focus on that and don't get too caught up in, like whether or not people get it, because the people who get you, really get you, they're going to get it. They're the freaking loyal people, the diehards, because they see a core aspect of you that is really rare, right? That people are able to sort of tap into sort of that depth. And the people who don't access that depth or who can't, they won't get it. That's okay. You're not here to convince anybody. You're not here to hustle for your worth or your legitimacy. What you are here to do is to express your wholeness, right? Like the thing that is lighting you up right now, show up with that, right? And give other people the permission to express that part of themselves as well, right? Whatever you're showing up with, if it's something that brings you joy, if it brings you passion, if it like just blows your head out because you're so excited about it, show up with that. That is enough. That gives people, like, regardless of what it is, that gives people permission to express those parts of themselves, right? And business, as I said before, is all about relationships. As you evolve and change and shift, there will be people who leave you, who gracefully exit your life, stage left, and there will be people who come in to maybe replace those people. Maybe more people come in, right? You don't know that. And of course, there will be people who are always there, the people who get it, and maybe they're extra forgiving or open to change, or maybe they're going through a similar process as you. You don't know that, right? So don't concern yourself with any of that. That is not your job to manage, right? Your job is to be you, just you. And I know it's hard. It's easier said than done, because we are attachment beings, because relationships do matter to our survival. And this is just not one of those moments to focus on that. This is a moment to come back to the truth of like, no, this is really what I want, or yeah, this is something that I value, to come back to that wisdom, to that intuitive knowing of like, yeah, this is something that's really important to me. Of course, I'm going to do this, right? So it's important that you honor the changes that are happening within you and how those are going to shift your needs and desires, right? When I say honoring the changes, it's about just giving them permission to be. Oftentimes we we sort of hold back. We're like, oh, but I can't come out with this. I got to keep doing the same thing because that's paying the bills. And, and so we don't come out with it because we fear alienating. And I talk a lot about needs and desires. They're really, really important, because needs and desires are at the very core of our humanity. And it's what we need to be in touch with at all times in order to maintain and move towards our sovereignty, right? Like sovereignty, embodying sovereignty is a lifelong journey, and you want to maintain the sovereignty that you've worked to create in your life. And as you move towards like more of your energetic leadership and sovereignty, you want to be in touch from moment to moment with your needs and desires, right? Because your needs and desires will affect how you steward your energy, full stop. It will affect how you prioritize things in your life, right? People, activities, right? Self. It will affect your boundaries, obviously, right? With your priorities, and it will affect where you focus your energy, with whom you focus your energy, and how you show up. So again, the reason we often run into problems or impasses is that we're not being totally honest with ourselves about what we need or what we want, because we tell ourselves we can't have the thing we need, or we don't give ourselves permission to give it to ourselves, right? Because there's an override of some conditioned way of being, right? Some traumatized way of being. Or we tell ourselves it's impossible. We can't possibly have that. We don't have the permission to ask for what we want, right? All of these reasons. But you are ultimately the permission giver. You ultimately make up all the rules. You get to shape your relationships. You get to shape your business. You get to shape all aspects of your life. You get to co-create your life with your needs and desires. And true leadership is about finding your own path, trusting yourself in it, even if it doesn't look like anybody else's, even when people don't get it, holding yourself through the fear of when people don't get it, and honoring the grief process that is often important, maybe not required, but important as part of getting to acceptance that not everybody's going to come with you. So that's it. This episode has been about embracing evolution, embracing change, really sort of rolling with what is, and allowing your relationships and your businesses to just shift along with what's going, and just giving that permission to move, because things are moving anyway. I am so excited to be back with you for season 3. Like I said, it's going to be a really exciting season. We're going to go deeper. We're going to go truer. It's going to be even more powerful than in years past. So I'm really excited to do that with you. And thank you again for listening. Mwah.